We're starting a new play on Shakesyear today. Hooray! We are going to start in on a play that is called The Puritan, or sometimes it was called The Puritan's Widow, or sometimes it was called The Widow of Watling Street. And this is a play that was published with the initials W.S. on the cover at one point, which made a lot of people think that it was written by William Shakespeare. So it was included in the third folio. But after going back and doing a lot of analysis on word usage and themes and all that sort of fun stuff that the scholars do, they actually think that this was probably written by Thomas Middleton as opposed to being written by Shakespeare. And it was probably written sometime around 1606, first performed in that general area as well. This is a comedy, so there's not that many monologues in it. We're going to get through it pretty quick. But let's kick it off. We get to hear today from Sir Godfrey in Act 1, Scene 1. Now, the play is called The Puritan's Widow, so we are going to be focusing on a widow, and we are. It's Lady Plus is the widow, and she has 3 children. Frances and Moll are her daughters, and Edmund is her son. And Sir Godfrey is her brother-in-law. So at the beginning of the play, the 5 of them come in, Lady Plus, her 3 kids, Frank, Moll, and Frances is often referred to as Frank. Frank, Moll, and Edmund and Sir Godfrey come in, and they are all obviously in mourning. They're wearing mourning clothes, they're wearing all black. And Lady Plus is just beside herself, and she's weeping. She's like, oh, the day I lost my husband, and blah, blah, blah. And Sir Godfrey's like, yeah, that's really sad. And she's like, he was the greatest man that ever lived. He's like, yeah, he was a pretty great man. And she's like, I'm never going to forget him. I'll never get over this. And Sir Godfrey says, nay, but kind sister, I could weep as much as any woman, but alas, our tears cannot call him again. Methinks you are well read, sister, and know that death is as common as homo, a common name to all men. A man shall be taken when he's making water. Nay, did not the learned parson, Master Pigman, tell us even now that all flesh is frail? We are born to die. Man has but a time. With such like deep and profound persuasion, as he is a rare fellow, and an excellent reader. And, for example, as there are examples abundance, did not Sir Humphrey Bubble die the other day? There's a lusty widow. Why, she cried not above a half an hour. For shame, for shame. Then followed him old Master Folsom, the usurer. There's a wise widow. Why, she cried ne'er a whit at all. So, Sir Godfrey is trying to get Lady Plus to stop crying. Stop grieving, stop mourning, stop making such a scene, essentially. He's like, look, I am just as sad as you are, but crying isn't going to bring your husband back. And weren't we just listening to the pastor saying that everybody dies and humanity is frail? And, he's a wise man, so he knows what he's talking about. And by the way, Sir Humphrey Bubble just died, and his wife only cried like a half an hour over him. And then Master Folsom, who's a usurer, he died, and his widow didn't cry over him at all. So Lady Plus is like, well, don't compare me to them. I had a much better husband than either of them. And he's like, yes. And then she turns her focus to her son Edmund. She's like, why aren't you crying at all? Your father died and you're not crying, you're not grieving at all. And Edmund is like, Mom, if I start crying, everybody's going to see it and they're going to make fun of me. And she's like, well, then get out of my sight, because you're no son of mine if you're not going to grieve for your father, because your father was the greatest man that ever was. And Sir Godfrey tries again to calm her down a little bit. And she's like, but he was so great, and I'm going to miss him, and I'm never going to forget him, and he was the best thing. And Sir Godfrey is like, yes. And he left you in a very good position. He left you a lot of money, so you are very rich. And she's like, really? And he's like, yes. And beyond that, you're also quite hot. And she's like, really? And then he's going to expound upon that in tomorrow's monologue. So I'll see you then for that. Mwah.